It is time for Friday Night Live. Yes, I know that I am 5 minutes late. I'm having all kinds of technology issues. It is my fifth Monday of the week. I know that you know what those are like, but I am here. And what I'm going to talk about tonight is what kind of retirement income you actually have some control over. And I want to specifically talk about how our retirements, our pensions are computed. Though that can be different depending on who you work for and what they have for a pension, or even if they do have a pension, because a lot of private sector companies don't have those guaranteed pensions anymore. We do still in the military and with our federal civilians, but not everybody has that. So I want to talk about how do we compute a pension if you are going to get one. How do we compute Social Security if you're paying into that, which again, many people are, but not everybody. Some state employees don't pay into Social Security. I know some schools don't pay into Social Security. So in order to get that benefit, you do have to contribute, and you have to have 40 credits before you can get anything out. I'm not going to get deep into that tonight. All I want to do is talk about the computation. And this one, Susan Masato had recommended that I talk about that. So thank you, Susan. I know you try to catch the Friday Night Lives. I hope that you're here live. If you're not, I hope that you catch it on the replay. And I really appreciate your input in giving me the suggestion. So we won't talk about eligibility for either. We're going to talk about computation of a pension, computation of Social Security if you're eligible for it. And then I want to talk about your investments, because that is one area where you have more control than over those other defined benefits. So on the screen here, you can see that I'm showing you what our federal civilians have. If you don't work for the federal government, yours may be similar. If your company has a defined benefit plan, again, they don't all have one. The numbers may be a little bit different, but the construct and how we actually compute the benefit is similar. So our federal employees are either under the Federal Employees Retirement System or the Civil Service Retirement System. There's an aspect of CSRS that's called offset. We'll call them subsets. That's not the correct terminology, but for this discussion, it will work. Little pieces of FERS, where a person could be FERS Fray or FERS Ray. Again, I'm not going to get into that tonight. It doesn't change what they get out. What that will change is the amount that the people have to pay for their own pensions. So the federal employees do contribute to a pension account. That money is kept in the Civil Service Retirement and Disability Fund. So you can see that right at the top box. And next to that, I've written, this is the pension. Okay, you can see what people are paying in. Under CSRS, they contribute 7% of their biweekly paycheck. Under FERS, if they were hired before 2013, they pay 0.8. If they were hired in 2013, they pay 3.1. And if they were hired after 2013, they pay 4.4 with something called special provisions. These are law enforcement officers, firefighters, air traffic controllers that have to pay those stated amounts plus an additional 0.5. So you can see that right there. Again, that's what they're paying in, but that's not what I want to talk about tonight. Most of us also pay in to Social Security. If we work for ourselves, then we pay into Social Security for the employer and the employee. If you're working for somebody else, then you pay the employee portion and your employer pays the employer portion. So the amount that we pay for the Social Security tax equals 6.2% of each of our paychecks, but there is an earnings cap for the Social Security tax every year. And again, you can see in the box that says Social Security, the cap for this year is that $142,800. What that means is if I make that much money, I stop paying the Social Security tax for the rest of the calendar year, and I would start paying it again in January. Again, what we're paying in isn't my main concern tonight. I want to talk about what we're getting out. In addition to our defined benefits, that's my FERS CSRS, that's my Social Security. Federal employees can also contribute to something that acts similarly. It isn't, but it acts similarly to a 401k for a private sector person. Within the federal government, we call that the Thrift Savings Program, or TSP. So in that box, you can see the maximum contributions coming from the person, $19,500, unless they're 50 or older, and then they can put another $6,500 in there for a max of 26. That's January 1st to December 31st, people that are going to be 50 and older. If you're not going to be 50, it's $19,500. Now, here's what I want to talk about. How much control do I have over each of these benefits? In how can I increase the amount that I'm going to be getting from my retirement accounts later on? And in order to talk about how I can control things, or what control I have, I want to show you the math problem for each of the defined benefits. And I'm going to start with the federal retirement. Again, if you're not with the federal government, your company has a defined benefit plan, it would be something similar, but it won't be exactly what I'm saying here. For the federal retirement, we're going to take the length of time that the person has worked and any military time that they've deposited. Again, too much for us to get into tonight, but all of that stuff added together is going to be called creditable length of service. So we're going to take that creditable length of service, we're going to multiply it by the individual's high 3 average salary. Again, we're not getting into the weeds with that tonight, but simplistically, that is any consecutive 3-year period when the person was earning the most basic pay. And there's a lot that goes into that, but again, for tonight, that's enough, right? I have this 3-year block all together. Whenever I'm sliding this block around and I find that the person had the highest amount of dollars earned in basic pay, that's what we're going to use. We're going to multiply that high 3 average salary by that individual's creditable length of service by a formula. Now here, it does matter what kind of job the person is working in and also what retirement system they're under, because we have one formula for CSRS, there's a different one for FERS. We have one formula for those special provision employees and a different one for everybody else. We have one formula if a person retires on a disability, a different formula if they don't. Those 3 things multiplied together are going to equal my annual annuity or my annual pension, my annual retirement. Those words are interchangeable. We can call it whatever we want to, but that's going to be per year. Federal employees receive a retirement benefit monthly. So once we multiply those 3 things together, then we divide by 12 to figure out how much that monthly is going to be. The formula comes from the retirement system. And again, sometimes the work that they're doing, because our firefighters and law enforcement officers do have a different formula than everybody else. So I wanted to give you some examples. If you are under FERS, the Federal Employees Retirement System, the system that's been in place, passed into law back in 1983, becoming fully effective in 1987, you would get either 1% or 1.1% times your creditable length of service times that high 3 average salary. Whether you get the 1 or the 1.1 depends on 2 things. How old you are when you leave your job and how many years of creditable service you have at the time. In order for you to get the 1.1, 2 things both have to be true. You have to be 62 or older before you leave your job. And here's why I'm saying it that way, okay? I have to retire to get the money. But sometimes we can leave at what's called our minimum retirement age, and we can decide not to actually collect the check later. If I leave today, but I don't collect the check until 2, 3, 5 years from now, the calculation, the formula is not going to be based on my age when I start collecting. It's going to be based on my age when I left. So I've got to be 62 or older, and I've got to have 20 years or more. Both are true. my formula is 1.1. One is true, but the other is not. My formula is 1. Okay? So that's the basic FERS formula. My slides cooperate with me. There we go. CSRS is a little bit more complicated. That old system that was in place in the federal government before 1983, and we still have people working under it, is a 3-line formula. People under CSRS receive 1.5% times their high 3 average salary times 5 plus 1.75% times their high 3 average salary times 5 plus 2% times their high 3 average salary for all of their years over 10, because we took away 5 in the first line and we took away 5 in the next line. And so those 3 together are going to equal that annual annuity. And again, we divide by 12 to get the monthly amount. There's a more simplistic way to figure it out, but I don't want to get into that tonight either. I'm just showing you the basic idea, the basic calculation for these retirements. Now, I did say also that our special provision employees have a different formula. Firefighters, law enforcement, Customs and Border Protection officers who are under law enforcement now, and air traffic controllers receive 1.7% times their high 3 times a maximum of 20 years. Now, if that person works for more than 20 years, or they make a military deposit or something like that, then everything over the initial 20 counts at 1%. So it's 1.7 for the first 20 and 1% for everything over that initial 20. And again, adding it all together is going to give me that annual amount. Now, why is it important for an employee to know how to calculate their retirement on their own? All of our federal agencies do have calculators available that you can use. They are things like GRB or EBIS but all of them, it doesn't matter what they're called. Every agency is different. They're generic. They're tools that give us a rough estimate of what our retirement is going to be. It's not necessarily factual. So the screen that I have up here, and I drew that red circle around, this is from GRB, and it's somebody's retirement estimate. But inside that circle it says, please note, we've made some assumptions when we ran this calculation. If you had temporary service, if you have an unpaid military deposit that we gave you credit for leave, but you haven't bought it for retirement, if something changes, if the assumptions that we made are not correct, this is not correct. Now, it's still a good idea for you to know how to run your numbers on your own, which is why I welcome Susan's recommendation that we talked about this so that people can actually get an idea of what it's going to be. And it's a good idea for you to do that. Then look at your agency's calculator and see what they have. If it is far away from what you were expecting to see, you need to talk to human resources to either understand why the numbers didn't work out to be what you're expecting to see there, or you're able to communicate that there's some kind of an error in your record and we can set about correcting that error. Mistakes happen, right? We've got human beings working in all of these processes. If you don't know that there's a mistake, then you're just going along and you might be in for a really nasty surprise at the end after you've already filed your retirement paperwork, after you've already left your job, everything has gotten to the Office of Personnel Management, and now they realize that there's a problem. We don't want that to happen. So you should be looking at your estimates manually. It's easy. I mean, you just use it on your cell phone, type in your money for your high 3 average salary, times your time, times your percentage, whatever that happens to be. Okay, that's box number 1. That's the pension. Now, if I do pay into Social Security, and again, most of us do, then I'm accruing Social Security credits or quarters, and you can use those words interchangeably. I need 40 of them to get anything, and I can only earn 4 a year, no matter how much money I make. Now, once I become eligible, and again, remember, that's not my focus tonight, I can get something out. What I get out for Social Security's retirement looks very similar to that federal retirement. They're going to look at all the years that I paid in. If you look at your Social Security statement, that's captured on the third page. It would say in this year you reported, in that year you reported, okay? So we're going to look at the years that you paid in. We are going to calculate your Social Security retirement by applying a 3-line formula to your high 35. Your pension was a high 3. Your military time is a high 36. Your Social Security is a high 35. So that high 35 actually has a name. I find this interesting, which is why I want to talk about it. And I know I'm going really fast. That high 35 is called your average indexed monthly earnings, or your AIM. We get that high 35 monthly average by essentially looking at all the years that you paid into Social Security, pulling out the highest 35, adding them up, and dividing by 420. Because we're looking for a monthly average, and there's 420 months in a 35-year period of time. So very simplistically, here we go. This is page 3 of somebody's Social Security statement, and I'm just going to go down through there, pull out the highest 35 numbers. I always need 35. I can't work with less than 35. So remember that 0 is a number. The highest 35 numbers, including any zeros, added up, divided by 420 equals my high 35, which is called my average index monthly earnings, or my AIM. Now, once I get that AIM, I will plug it into the 3 lines of computation. Social Security's formulas, the formula is standard. It's always going to be the 90 and the 32 and the 15, but the dollar amounts change every year. So the dollar amounts that you see here are for 2021. They give me 90% of the first $996 of my average index monthly earnings, and 32% of the next $5,006, and 15% for everything over the top of the first 2 numbers. We add it together. This is your Social Security retirement benefit at your full retirement age. So that's something between 66 and 67 and so many months, depending on when you were born. If you drew early, it would be less. You can draw as young as age 62. If you drew late, it would be more. You can draw as late as age 70. Now, what I really wanted to make a pitch for tonight is you taking care of yourself in retirement. You can't really control the pension too much. If we say, and it is, based on your creditable length of service times your high 3 average salary times a formula, how do you increase your money? You work longer. If you work longer, your creditable length of service is higher. That's a bigger number, which means when we run the math problem, the bottom line is going to be bigger. You might apply for promotions, because if you apply for a promotion, then your high 3 average salary is going to be increasing. Again, the second line of the equation is bigger. The equation itself is going to be bigger. Maybe you decide that you are a first person, and you are not going to retire at 60 like you originally thought you might do, but you decided that you're going to stay until you're 62 so that you can get that 1.1 multiplier. Another thing that you might decide to do to increase that creditable length of service is make a military deposit. If you buy your military time, that's going to count towards your retirement. So I can increase it, I can, but I'm somewhat limited in applying for and maybe getting selected for a promotion, in working longer, maybe even longer than I had planned for, but both of those things would increase my pension. Same thing with Social Security, right? If we're talking about Social Security being based upon our high 35 years of paying in and our age when we begin drawing, then how do we increase that benefit? We get higher paying jobs. We pay more in Social Security taxes so that our high 35 number is larger. We don't draw when we're 62 because if we do, we would have a penalty. Instead, we wait until we're 66 or 67, so many months. Or we might even wait until we're 70 because the longer we wait to collect that check, the bigger it's going to be. Now, I'm not saying that that's what you need to do, right? Because then that becomes a dice roll and people go, well, yeah, if I wait until I'm 70, I'm going to get more money. But what if I pass away when I'm 69? That could happen. So I'm not saying that you have to wait. I'm saying if you're interested in increasing your retirement income, what are the things that you can do? Work longer, get higher paying jobs, pay more in Social Security tax. You'll increase your benefits. Difficult. What you do control is your investments. So it is critically important that you save as much as you can and contribute to TSP. Remember that the maximum is $19,500 unless you're 50 or older, then it's $26,000. If you are contributing to a Roth IRA outside of the government, the maximum is $6,000. If you're contributing to a traditional IRA, the maximum is $6,000. Unless you are over 50, you can put another $1,000 in there for a max of $7,000. Save as much as you possibly can, investing even a little bit in the beginning so that it will accumulate some compound interest is in your best interest. Because the longer it's in there, it grows interest on interest on interest on interest. And that investment account is the one that you have more control over. I'm not saying you control the market because you don't, but you can definitely control how much you save towards your retirement, how much you invest, how early you start so that you have the best chances of growing some retirement income for yourself. That's what I wanted to talk about tonight. So I did start late, but I have still done the 20 minutes. I try to keep these short. I want them to be helpful. I want them to be succinct. I want to just address one topic at a time instead of when you come to the retirement training, we're talking about a dozen different things within a couple of hours. Invitation's always open. If you are watching it now and you have questions, let me know. If you catch it later on, please go into the comments and let me know that you were here. That means a lot to me. You have any questions? Tell me what they are. If you have suggestions, so last week we heard from Corey and this week it was Susan that made a recommendation to me. If you have any suggestions for things that you would like for me to cover, 20 minutes or less, let me know. I am happy to consider it. I hope that you have a great rest of your Friday evening and a wonderful weekend. I will see you here next week. Hey, Kelly, I'm so glad you caught it live. I know that you're learning some stuff because you're always great about dropping me a line and letting me know. Hey, Stacy, thank you. Thank you very much. We can thank Susan for telling me to talk about this. Okay, guys, take care of yourself. Let me know what I can do to help.